Morning, glory, America. Bonjour, hi, Canada. Hugh Hewitt on the West Coast this morning, but saluting the 70th anniversary of the accession to the throne of Queen Elizabeth II that happened on Sunday. I mean, my hat is off to anyone who can do anything for 70 years. And not only do it, but endure the ups and downs of it, from working on motor vehicle things during the Blitz, through the sudden death of her father when she was in Kenya, through the entire 70 years that have followed Queen Elizabeth, has always put duty ahead of everything else. She's a God, country, and Commonwealth person, and I admire that. Now, there have been times when people have disagreed with her and they feel estranged, have caught up in the Queen, etc., and the whole Princess Diana affair. But you do something for 70 years with that kind of aplomb, and we will applaud you too. So my hat is off to Queen Elizabeth this morning. And whether or not you know it, and you probably don't, the Olympics are underway. Or they're not. The Olympics opening ceremony drew record low television ratings. Why aren't Americans tuning in? Asked Dan Wetzel, columnist at Yahoo. The reason is the Americans hate the Chinese Communist Party. And the American people want nothing to do with these Olympics, and they're going to punish the sponsors. I absolutely think they're going to punish the sponsors. I did not follow the whole, I like Savannah Guthrie. She's always been nice to me. I worked 2016 election night with Savannah back when NBC did it that way. And meaning that they had political analysts who were pro-Trump and political analysts who were anti-Trump instead of just anti-Trump. But I got to know Savannah a little bit, very professional. I don't know what she said about China, what went viral, what got taken down. I don't know what anyone said on NBC about this, because I haven't watched it. I'm not going to watch a minute of this genocidal maniac regime's propaganda pageant. All power to the athletes. I will congratulate them upon their return. I won't know who they are because I didn't know who they are before they went off. I don't follow winter sports, and I'm not watching it, and I'm going to, I hope you're not watching it. I'd like a list of the sponsors because I want to know who not to participate in. By the way, there's a story in the Wall Street Journal over the weekend. As China gained clout, Hollywood looked for a new villain, a deep dive into the 2008 Red Dawn remake, which was originally going to feature China as the villain. Couldn't be Russia anymore. It couldn't be, the Soviet Union was gone. So they wrote the whole thing. Tom Cruise is in it. They're making all their Wolverine shots. And then they figure out, oops, we've got to kill this movie or China's going to kill us. And they did. That's when it began, 2008. 14 years later, one NBA player will say something bad about China, and no movie will say anything bad about China. But the American people know that China poisoned the world, and they have concentration camps. So we're not going to the 1936 Olympics 2.0. Not doing it, not watching it. People in Tennessee aren't watching it because they haven't got any power. My thoughts are with you if you're running one of your battery-powered up radios. Tens of thousands in Memphis, still in the dark after winter. It was a rough weekend. I personally went to Phoenix on Friday and moderated with Kathy Herod of Cap Action 2 debates on Saturday morning at 8:30 to noon. Debate number 1. 4 of 5 candidates for the Arizona Republican Party's nomination for Senate. The primary is in August. Again, it's February. We had 750 people there. They had to pay $10 a ticket to keep the lunatics from breaking the website. It wasn't supposed to make any money for Cap Action, who invited me to moderate it along with their president, Kathy Herod. But it was quite a demand signal, 750 people. And very, very interesting. I'll be talking in the second hour with Governor Christie about that. Very, very interesting. Fascinating where the Republican Party in Arizona is, what its candidates believe, who is leading, and what will happen. I'll tell you about it as the show goes on, but I did have a great time. But I got into Phoenix on Friday. I wanted to come back to California on Saturday because I was having lunch Sunday with the fetching Mrs. Hewitt and 2 of our dearest friends in the world, our old pastor and his spouse. And they were preaching at Laguna Presbyterian Church. We drove down on Sunday and heard them and had lunch with them yesterday. And just Mark Roberts gave a great sermon. And the Third Project at the Dupree Center at Fuller is an amazing project that Mark is the senior strategist for, and he writes a daily devotional. And we were talking about, he's just a brilliant scholar and teacher, and you've heard him on this show many, many times. In fact, he lives forever on this show, as long as this show does, because he does the Christmas Eve show every year in taped form. And he came on and debated Christopher Hitchens on this show. If you're a long-time listener to the Hugh Hewitt show, you know who Mark Roberts is. So I had to get back. So I ran to the airport as soon as the debate was over, after I'd been booed. It's the second time I've been booed as a debate moderator. All right? Second time. First time was when I asked Ben Carson an inartful question about, could he really drop a nuclear bomb on anyone? Because Ben Carson's the nicest man ever, and people who like Ben Carson booed me. It was actually a compliment. But that's okay. It's part of the job. This is the business we have chosen, right, from The Godfather. So I quoted President Trump to them in the course, the governor candidate, of course, talking about vaccines and boosters. And in so doing, I referenced, I did not have audio, I just had read it and listened to it, this exchange between President Trump and Bill O'Reilly, cut number 10.
But look, we did something that was historic. We saved tens of millions of lives worldwide. We, together, all of us, not me, we got a vaccine done, 3 vaccines done, and tremendous therapeutics like Regeneron and other things that have saved a lot of lives. We got a vaccine done in less than 9 months. It was supposed to take from 5 to 12 years. Because of that vaccine, millions and millions of people, I think this would have been the Spanish flu of 1917, where up to 100 million people died. This was going to ravage the country far beyond what it is right now. Take credit for it. Take credit for it. It's a great, what we've done is historic. Don't let them take it away. Don't take it away from ourselves. You're playing right into their hands when you sort of like, oh, the vaccine. If you don't want to take it, you shouldn't be forced to take it. No mandates, but take credit because we saved tens of millions of lives. Take credit. Don't let them take that away from you.
Okay, so the president made news.
Do you agree with that?
Right? Both the president and I are vaxxed, and did you get the booster?
Yes.
I got it too. Okay, so
don't. That's all. There's a very tiny group of it.
Very tiny group over there. He went on to say, we got to get the rest of the clip, Dwayne. Don't do that. Boosters out there. I can't remember exactly what he said, but he's a boosted president, and he said later, I don't understand why people don't tell you whether they're boosted. Can you go and see if that's around, Dwayne? And so I referenced this in a question to the Arizona would-be governors, saying, do you applaud the vaccinations and have you been boosted? And I got booed by about the same number of people who booed Trump. There were maybe 10 people, very anti-booster. One of whom, nice guy, comes up and said, you're lying about the president. He didn't say that. And I said, no, I actually prepare for this stuff. I'm not lying. President said, get the booster. That's what he said. And you just, and get the vaccine and take credit for it. I do not understand that quadrant. There are two kinds of people. They're either pro-Trump and anti-Trump, and then they're either pro-vaccine or anti-vaccine. I do not understand that quadrant that are pro-Trump and anti-vax. I don't get it. Now I'm vaccinated, I have a booster, and I think the science is clear, and I hope you go out and get it today. You've heard me say that. I'm not going to change anyone's mind now. That's not going to happen. So I don't talk about it very much, but that's what I believe, and it's out there to be used and saves lives. And I don't want to get sick. And if they have another shot, I'll take another shot. I learned over last week that vitamin D matters, so I made sure I upped my vitamin D intake. I'm no dummy. I'm 65. I want to go to AT Roll, 101 on his own wheels in his own house. That's the Ashtabula line. All right, so if you can make it to the Ashtabula line. A lot of you are moving to Florida and Texas because you're not tough. And that's okay. Not all of us were born to be Buckeyes. I was sitting on the patio with fetching Mrs. Hewitt and the Roberts yesterday, having lunch at a great restaurant in Laguna Beach. And a guy spotted my Guardians hat, which is very, 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 if you can see it over my shoulder if you're watching on the Salem News Channel. The Guardians gear is, you have to be ahead of the curve to get the Guardians gear. And the guy said, Guardians, go Guardians. I said, go Guardians. And they said, OH. And I said, IO. And fetching Mrs. Hewitt and the Roberts look at me like I was from Mars. Honestly, I don't understand, but if you're Ohio tough, you You don't get deterred by people booing you. You talk about it. We come back. Ukraine on the brink. Chris Christie's coming up today. We'll make some news on that. Do not miss that. We're going to follow up on his ABC News This Week appearance yesterday. But we are also going to, if I tell you something in a debate, you can take it to the bank. That's what I want to tell my friends in Arizona who were booing me Saturday. I'll be right back, America. It's the Hugh Hewitt Show. Welcome back, America. Salena Zito is America's columnist right from the heart of Yinzerland, Western Pennsylvania, which may have power or not. Tennessee doesn't. Good morning, Salena Zito. Do you have power in Pittsburgh?
I do have power in Pittsburgh.
Okay, well, that's good because Tennessee ain't got it. Salena, your Washington Examiner column, The Covenant Between Main Street Consumer and Big Corporations is Collapsing. Sort of must reading for elected officials. Would you do thesis statement and summarize for it?
Well, it's the covenant between the two entities, who we buy our products from, and who makes our products, is shattered, is broken, because there's no connection between the two, because who makes our stuff in big entities it doesn't live anywhere near us, so they don't know us, and when that is broken, when that relationship is broken, it's very similar to how broken our relationship is with government, with institutions, with academia. We don't have any cultural connection.
So I want to pick up on this. I want to begin by saying, at one point in your column, you write that nowadays people find themselves using or buying products made in plants in this country that are run by a board of directors who only fly in and out of the facility once a year for a board meeting. Now, I want to say that is true for a lot of companies. It's true that they never visit some. But there are companies that have every board meeting near the factory floor. And my sister-in-law is an HBS grad and younger than I am. That's all she does is boards now. She got up to number 2 in Bean, and all she does is fly around and do boards now. And they always go to production plants. So it's not always true, but I think it is true mostly for most production plants in the United States. Because if you're Coca-Cola, you've got 100 of them, right? Or 10, I don't know how many.
Yeah, that's true. So think about Hoover Vacuum Company, Canton, Ohio, right? Was it Canton or Akron?
Not sure. I should know that.
Anyways, Mr. Hoover lived 4 blocks from everybody knows what the Hoover vacuum cleaner is. He lived 4 blocks from his plant. He, not only knew everyone that worked for him, he also knew everyone that bought his product. And he was in church with them every Sunday. His wife was on the school board. There was this connection. So when he was making when he was thinking about his vacuum cleaners, all he had to do was look across his shoulder and to see how the people were using them in his neighborhood.
Yeah, that's like Halsey Taylor drinking fountains. Every ring around the middle of the drinking fountain had Halsey Taylor, made in Warren, Ohio.
Right.
Everybody knew the Halsey Taylor. Everybody knew them. You could find them. You could tell them their drinking fountains were great. They never broke. They were great.
Yeah. You don't know You don't know people that way that make you the things.
I know Ben and Jerry are out of their minds somewhere up in Vermont.
That's because they make sure everybody knows they're out of their mind.
Yeah, they go away. They're apologizing for Chinese totalitarianism or Russian expansionism this weekend. So, Salena, how did this go over? Actually, you went and you talked to a lot of people for this. Generally, woke corporate America ain't coming back, is it?
It's lost its relationship with people. What's interesting to me, these are one of the things that I qualify, even though the story was about Penzeys Spices and about the owner, Bill Penzeys Jr., having all Republicans are racist special.
Yes.
Unbelievable. Anybody would do that. But it's not even a Democrat-Republican thing. It's an inside-outside thing. And what it is doing, and we saw this leading up to 2016, and we saw even in 2020, when you look down ballot, it's pushing people to the right that normally would not intuitively go right.
very quickly, very firmly. Woke is going to be broke, I think, Salena.
Yeah, absolutely true. Unfortunately,
Have you watched 1 minute of the Olympics?
No.
No, and you say that with the disdain that apparently America is reacting to it. They want nothing to do with CCP or the sponsors of the Olympics. But I want to know who they are because I don't want to buy their products. It's like Coca-Cola, Delta, and Major League Baseball screwing at Georgia.
Yep.
I just want, and those three had no idea what they were going to get the blowback.
No, they were absolutely clueless because you know what? They don't know their customers. They don't know the people that sit in their seats or drink their soda, or as we call it, pop around here.
Yeah, I know you do call it pop, but that's because two-syllable words tax the Pittsburghers' genuine ability. Pittsburgher took them a long time. So, Salena, the last thing is, I did 2 debates in Arizona, and I asked the candidates if they'd had been vaccinated and boosted. You're a good plumb line. Is that a legit question? If you've got a booster?
I don't know.
Think about it. Now, Donald Trump said you should answer the question, so I asked the question, and I got booed. I think it's legit, and then the follow-up is obviously why, one way or the other. But they all said it's none of your business. I said, you're running for governor. That's...
Yeah.
We'll see. Think about it. Salena Zito is the plumb line on kind of sweet reason in the middle of the country, even in syllable-free Pittsburgh. SalenaZito.com. I'll be right back, America. Hour number 2. Chris Christie coming up on the Hugh Hewitt. Morning glory, America. Bonjour, hi, Canada. Greetings from the West Coast on Monday, February 7th in the year of our Lord. I'm Hugh Hewitt live, joined by Jake Sherman of Punchbowl News. Now, I read my Punchbowl News email every morning. You should as well. Jake and team cover Congress like nobody else. And I've discovered, Jake, good morning. How are you?
I'm well, Hugh. How are you?
Good. I had a revelation about Punchbowl News. Because you cover a closely divided Congress, you are the least divorced from the reality of America of any news outlet that is Beltway based, because the Manhattan Beltway media elite generally just gets the blue signal, the blue demand signal. You have to get the red demand signal because you have to talk to them.
Yeah, I've always made the point to people who criticize us and others for being biased for the left that what good does that serve me if I need to get Republicans to talk to me? I don't.
You are not. You know. I have problems with Politico and I have problems with Axios. I love Jonathan Swan. I love people at Politico as well, but I think they've gone left. You haven't. You're just reporting Congress. And it struck me today when I read it this morning. And you're the only person in America who has put their finger on the most important question congressionally, and it is, when does Senator Lujan come back? Our New Mexico senator, and we say a prayer for him, had a stroke. And you write this morning, with Lujan out for at least the next few weeks, Sherman can't move any nomination that requires 50 votes for 50 Senate Democrats to be present, which also means that reconciliation bills in whatever form are out as well. It's a huge deal. And you've got it. So now dial me in. What do you know about Senator Lujan's condition? Because America's media has not covered itself in glory in telling us this.
Well, it's a delicate situation, obviously, for the media and for other people because he's obviously suffered quite a serious bout with a stroke. But they told us last week that he'll be back within 4 to 6 weeks. I don't have any clue. I'm not a doctor. I haven't examined his condition. I don't know his doctors. But I remember we have 2 examples of senators who have been out with strokes before. That's Mark Kirk of Illinois, Republican of Illinois, and Tim Johnson, Democrat of South Dakota, both of whom had strokes while in office. And they both came back after several months' absence, is my recollection. But right now, Mitch McConnell is the functional majority leader, although he doesn't have the power to do anything. He has more votes. So if you look at what they could do, it's very limited. I mean, I don't, besides passing government funding, which they need to do in the next 11 days, I'm really not quite sure what they can do when it comes to just basic governing, the blocking and tackling of governing.
So, Jake, my question, are you skeptical of the information we have been given about Senator Lujan's return schedule?
I'm skeptical about everything, Hugh. So
I know that. I am very skeptical. And I prayed for the guy this morning because stroke is tough. It scares me more than almost anything else. And that's why I walk. So I don't want to have a stroke. And Mark Kirk and Tim Johnson are examples of why not. But it is of national interest. It is of great consequence to the Ukrainians. It is of great consequence to the Supreme Court whether or not he's coming back. Doesn't somebody owe us a lot more information, like when Donald Trump went to the hospital?
Well, I will say this. We didn't find out until 5 days after he had the stroke. He has he had surgery to relieve swelling in his brain, so he's had brain surgery. And we asked Martin Heinrich, the other Democrat from New Mexico, senator from New Mexico, who was also in the House of Representatives. They both were in the House of Representatives. We asked him about his condition, and he kind of said, you know, you guys are ridiculous. You know, I'm not answering, blah, 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 you know, that kind of thing. So, you know, it would be nice to have a little bit more information for sure, because this is the health of a public official. Now, I had a very prominent Republican senator say to me the other day, they disagree with me. He has the right to his privacy. And if he was governor of a state, it would be different because he's in charge of a state. Senate, they view a little bit differently. But I mean, I think Democrats would like to know more. Democrats don't really know what's going on. And again, very serious.
Senators are very protective of senators. You and I both know that that's a club, and R&D don't matter much inside the club. They take care of each other. They love each other. They're friends. They know each other's spouses. And I'm not denying that at all. And normally that would be the correct response. But he isn't the president. He is the deciding vote on the majority in the Senate, though. Mitch McConnell is the de facto majority leader until Senator Lujan comes back. Am I right?
Yeah, he can't bring things to the floor necessarily, absent some, you know, bizarre procedural maneuver. And Schumer's going to have to keep a tight grip on the floor because he doesn't have the votes. So, you know, time is ticking, Hugh. I mean, we're in February of an election year, and let's say he's back in March. There's just a lot going on. I mean, as you noted, the Russia sanctions are absolutely gigantic. That's going to have to be worked out. Government funding is going to have to be worked out. If you're want some form of Build Back Better, although under a different name with different policy, that is going to require Lujan's presence. So there's just a lot riding on Lujan's absence, and again, hope he's doing well, but there's a lot riding on it.
Okay, we've said that both enough that people will now understand when I say the media is not doing its job. If this was a Republican in a 50-49 Senate, the progressive left would be demanding that Chuck Schumer, you know, grab the gavel and take over from Majority Leader McConnell. I'm not suggesting Leader McConnell do that. I'm suggesting that the media needs to let us know how long the United States Senate is paralyzed. Because there is one option that I haven't seen the left argue for this yet, which is Senator Lujan resign, will appoint it's a Democratic governor, will appoint a placekeeper. When you're better, they will resign, and you can go back. I'll appoint you again. Isn't that the way forward?
Yeah, there's no reason he cannot do that. There's no and I would imagine if this
Jake, you just broke up there.
Talked about.
What did you imagine? You just broke up there. You would imagine what?
I would imagine that if it goes on for much longer, then yes, then that will have to be something that they talk about. There's no reason why Lujan can't step down. They can't appoint somebody, and then when he's better, he comes back. But again, we're only a week into this, and they say between 4 and 6 weeks. So we'll have to see. If it gets to 6 weeks and he's not back, then that's something we'll have to start asking people. And believe me, we're asking people every day. Very few people want to answer about it. They say it's mild, and I understand that. But you're right. The Senate is paralyzed at the moment.
So the appropriate question is, without disclosing any personal details, what is your level of certainty that he will be back after 6 weeks? That's the question. Because if it's under 50%, honestly, I do not know what the media people need now. Okay, Jake, now talk to me about defense spending, because this equity with defense nonsense, we are holding up the Defense Authorization Act, $25 billion in additional spending and crippling the Pentagon. Who is demanding that we not appropriate money for the Pentagon?
No, I think the better way to say it is Democrats are demanding, Republicans and Democrats both demand of each other, any spending has to be accompanied with an increase in social spending. Obviously, Democrats want the increase in social spending to go along with the $25 billion increase in defense spending. That is there will be people on the left who don't agree with the increase in defense spending. There will be people on the right who don't agree with the social spending, obviously. Now, listen, here's the thing. Patrick Leahy longtime senator from Vermont, is the Senate Appropriations Chair, and Richard Shelby is the top Republican. Both men are retiring at the end of this year, and this is a swan song for them to get all sorts of spending through. And as you know, Hugh, appropriators aren't Republicans or Democrats. They're appropriators. They like spending money regardless of the party. So I would have to imagine that they do get a deal, but you're right. There's a big point of contention between Republicans and Democrats over this idea of spending parity, increasing defense spending at the same level of increasing social spending, and both sides are arguing for that.
All right, last question, Jake. I made the observation earlier, Marco Rubio said this to Margaret Brennan on Face the Nation yesterday, the January 6th committee has no purchase with the center right in America. I mean, it's a rump committee. It's it's not legit. They suppress the rights of the minority. I know there are two Republicans on it, and people have mixed. Elizabeth Cheney's a friend of mine. I don't know Adam Kinzinger from Adam Kinzinger, but I just wonder, is Congress aware that the American people do not care, except
They're trying to get people to care, and I would make the argument, Hugh, and this is a place where I'll be very, very critical of Republicans. Kevin McCarthy, and Mitch McConnell could have had complete veto authority over subpoenas if they had accepted the original proposal on this committee. They could have been completely involved and completely in the driver's seat, and they're not, and they do shoulder some blame on that.
Actually, no, Jake. I got to push back. I want you to get the last word in. Once that bill failed, for reasons that I agree with, it became an issue for Nancy Pelosi on how to set up an investigatory select committee for which there are many precedents, all of which she broke. She can't run away from that.
That you're not wrong that she did design it after that. You're absolutely right. I would argue that the preceding event was dispositive as well.
You can't. Well, okay, that's next week, Jake. Because you can't repeal a precedent of the House that is hundreds of years old and recently exercised because you're Nancy Pelosi. It's just, the country doesn't care. You can't make them care. We don't care. We're not going to care. Arrest the people. Try the people. Be done with January 6th. Get Punchbowl News, though. Punchbowlnews.com. I'll be right back, America. Prayers for Senator Lujan. Questions for Senator Schumer when we return on the Hugh Hewitt Show. Welcome back, America, live from the West Coast this morning. I'm Hugh Hewitt. If you do not have Martha MacCollum on your record every day at 3 p.m. on the Fox News channel, you're missing something. She also hosted Fox News Sunday yesterday, and I'm glad she's here to talk about that. Good morning, Martha. Welcome back.
Good morning, Hugh. Great to be with you.
Can I embarrass you a little bit? My buddy O'Brien, Robert O'Brien, has been my friend for 15 years, very close friend, former law partner.
Yeah.
Tells me you're one of the 4 people he'll talk to on television at any time because you're actually smart and prepared. That's a big compliment.
Well, that doesn't embarrass me. That makes me feel great. He's a wonderful guest, and obviously you are a wonderful commentator and writer, and I've followed your work all these years as well. So I'm in good company.
So let me talk about Jake Sullivan yesterday, because you did a very good, very crisp interview with the National Security Advisor, and you interview the other National Security Advisor often. How do those two compare, Martha MacCollum, as an interview?
Well, obviously they're very different people with very different perspectives on how to negotiate a stronger position for the United States in the world. And Jake Sullivan says, that's his goal. He says, big picture, when you look at things, my job is to make sure that the United States and our allies come out stronger from all of this in the end, and that Russia and their allies come out weaker in all of this. And I'm not sure that that's the path that we're taking here. And when you look back to when Robert O'Brien was the National Security Advisor, you had a very different equation, which was focused on making sure that we were strong in energy and other aspects of the economy that gave us some leverage in the global picture, that allowed us to have strengths that would that would decrease, frankly, Putin's leverage. When you look at things like the Keystone XL pipeline and allowing federal leases for natural gas on American land, all of those things really helped to give us energy independence, which was a huge, huge advantage. I mean, that alone, I think, shifted the geopolitical picture.
Absolutely, it did.
In a way that is really, very difficult to overestimate.
You give Putin $100 a barrel oil, he's got twice the defense budget.
Yeah, and right now we're scrambling to find ways to help, Europe to deal with an energy shortage if this thing goes to to the point where Putin can't supply them anymore. And that's not a great equation. That's not where you want to be.
So now I want to go a bit broader, Martha. You and Brett and Dana and Bill and John, there are a bunch of hard news people over at Fox News. When Chris, I know you're a friend, I'm not asking you to criticize Chris or comment on Chris. I never comment on anyone I've ever worked with in the media, ever. Whether they're left, right, center, I don't. But when Chris left Fox News Sunday, it had 1,100,000 viewers on the last Sunday. CBS Face the Nation had 3 million. ABC just under 3 million, Meet the Press 2.6, Fox 1.1. I think Fox is going to win the Sunday show. Do you?
I do. Chris did a fantastic job. I loved working with him over all those years on election coverage, and he's super smart, as everyone knows. I do think we can win that slot. We've win every other slot. So certainly I think that we can put our heads together and be very formidable in that space. And, one of the things that it takes is I do think that on Sunday people like to see a good sort of respectful back and forth, and they want to see questions that will provoke some real answers out of the guests. But you also have to have a forum where you're going to get those people to the table to talk. And that's hard in today's world on all sides of the aisle. So I think that's the goal for that Sunday show. And I think if that can be achieved, I think it'll be blockbuster.
And I want to underscore, Jake Sullivan went on to talk to you yesterday, so he trusts you. When Brett was hosting in December, Joe Manchin went on to talk to him. Democrats trust Fox News Sunday. They will come on. I am not certain that the rest of the networks have not lost the trust of the American people in terms of their slant. Do you hear that from people, Martha?
I think there's a general frustration across the board with the fact that everything has become so siloed and that there isn't more sort of courageous back and forth. And I really appreciated Jake Sullivan coming on yesterday because these are really important issues that we need to talk about. And I think there has to be a fair place where those kind of discussions can happen, where it's not hitting below the belt and gotcha. But the questions are there that need to be answered. So, we pushed him a bit on the energy issue and the big picture of what's going on in Ukraine and whether or not we should be there in the first place. So I really appreciate it. I hope he'll come on my 3:00 show as well.
It's crucial for national security people to go on all networks, and when the host is prepared like Martha is, to let them ask you tough questions. Because today we've got Macron negotiating with Putin, which I think is a defeat of the United States in and of itself, Martha. Do you understand what I'm saying when I make that point?
I absolutely understand what you're saying there, yes.
What did you get from Jake? Does he evidence confidence in our ability to be heard on the world stage?
I think that President Biden spoke with President Putin yesterday, as I understand it, from the White House. He has definitely taken a different posture on this, and I think the language that Macron is using is pretty interesting. He's very clear that he wants to change the dynamic. He wants the EU to be the person who is on the front line negotiating what's going on in Europe. Maybe that's the way it should be. But he's making no bones about how he sees his position in the world. He's got an election coming up in April. And I think that it would be naive to not look at what's going on right now and see that powers in the world are shifting and attempting to shift power away from the United States. And that's something that we just need to look at squarely and be aware of and ask ourselves whether or not we're okay with that.
Yeah, the Putin-Xi picture over the weekend should just be an electric jolt. When you see that picture, what do you think, Martha MacCollum?
Well, I think that Putin is aligning himself in a position. Those are our biggest adversaries in the world. So when they get together, it reminds me of Germany and Japan, frankly. It reminds me of where we've been before. And I think if you don't learn the lessons of history, you will be burned by them. I think Putin is concerned about sanctions, and I think he hopes that China can give him some relief from those. Obviously, China is a much bigger, more powerful global actor than Russia is, and I think there's probably been a little too much emphasis on Russia in many ways. But, this is a question that we have tried. You think about the Russia reset. There's been attempts to sort of make sure that this doesn't happen, but it's happening now, and we have to face that reality.
I agree. And playing the part of Italy in this recasting of 1939 is Iran. Did Jake indicate anything? They have a crazy off-the-record point of view going around, which is if we don't go back to the JCPOA, it's a win. I don't understand what they're doing on Iran. Do you?
Well, they have now given them some sanctions relief, and I think that it's the same sort of thing that we've seen in other areas where they believe that if you sort of give them something and you're nice to them and make their world a little bit more comfortable, that they'll come around. And that has not been the case with Iran, and they're getting closer, not further away from having a nuclear weapon. So we're in a very tough spot with that triumvirate forming, and for the larger picture, it's because of what they stand for. These are communist nations who believe very different things than we believe, and that's very important. That force for good. I mean,
they're all totalitarians. Yeah, two are communists. Well,
So,
they're actually only China has it anymore, but they're all totalitarians. I think that's what you meant to say. And so, my question is, when you sit down with Jake and you have a limited amount of time, Jake Sullivan or Robert O'Brien, you have 8 minutes, 9 minutes. It's a long bit of Sunday turf. How do you prepare for that?
I started with just a broad scope of questions, a lot of focus on Afghanistan, on Ukraine rather, a little bit of Afghanistan, a little bit of Iran at the end. You never have the amount of time that you want to have to get to them, and all of these people tend to have very long answers, so you kind of want to find that pace so that you can get as much in as you can. And I rewrite my questions, 3-4 times before you sort of settle on, okay, this is the order that I want to ask them in, and this is how this should go. And it's what we love to do, really. I mean, it's almost like when you're doing a debate or you're doing a town hall, and you get these moments where you can really talk to people in power, and you want to make it as precise as you can.
Yeah, I did 2 debates in Arizona for their Senate and GOP governor candidates on the weekend. I love doing debates. Now, let me ask you quickly, the Olympics ratings. Now, I don't want to slag my old friends at NBC. The decision to televise those were made arguably when China wasn't totalitarian and engaged in genocide and crushing Hong Kong. But they're stuck with them, and the ratings are awful. Why do you think that is?
Well, they're sort of in a rock and a hard place because I think the promotion, and even on the American companies, Coca-Cola used to put, Olympic rings on the side of every single Coke can in America because they've sponsored the Olympics forever. It's almost like they want to pretend like it's not happening, but they have to embrace it. So they're in a very difficult position. I also think that this never should have happened. It's become extremely commercial. The IOC makes a ton of money on this arrangement, and I think that's something that has seeped into the American understanding of the Olympics. So when I was a kid, I was glued to the Olympics for 2 straight weeks. I couldn't wait to watch it from opening ceremony to closing ceremony. Plus, they were amateur athletes. Now you've got. I thought, well, wouldn't it be amazing if you had sort of a recreation of 1980 with the U.S. and Soviet hockey teams playing each other? But something like a third or a half of the Chinese hockey team was born in the United States or North America. So I think it makes it really hard for people to sort of cheer on their teams the way that they did in the past.
Yeah, you're way too young to remember 72, but I watched hours of a frozen camera on the Israeli athletes taken hostage by the, and I watched every other minute of the game. I just think the American public are rejecting the regime in China overwhelmingly. A last question, and this is off the top of my head. I asked the candidates for Arizona governor GOP nomination if they had received the booster. I did so because President Trump said people should answer that question, and they're all running in the Trump lane. None of them would answer that question. Martha, do you think it's a good question for people? Have you received the booster?
I guess it is. I think I feel that it's a personal answer. I have no problem saying that I've got 2 vaccines, and then I got a booster, and then I got COVID after that. So I feel pretty inoculated at the moment. But I guess I'm a little bit, I feel like it's okay for people to say, you know what, that's my personal health decision, and I don't want to answer it. But I think it's a great question to ask.
Yeah, what's interesting?
It reveals how people feel about the whole question, which I think is a brilliant question.
That's it. It's just, and they all declined, and they said, and I would never ask a private sector person, I wouldn't ask anyone not seeking office that question because it's their own damn business. But with President Trump out there saying, answer the question, and 4 would-be conservative Trumpists running in Arizona, I just thought it was obvious to me. But I appreciate your perspective on that. It's just It's going to come up again and again. Martha MacCollum, Fox News Sunday yesterday. Great show this afternoon at 3 p.m. in the East. Nap time for you in the West, but nevertheless. Martha, be well. Thank you for joining me.
You be well, too. Thank you for having me, Hugh.
Welcome back, America. I'm Hugh Hewitt, joined by Josh Kraushaar. Hotline Josh on Twitter from National Journal. Good morning, Josh. Good Monday to you.
Good morning, Hugh.
What do you know about Senator Lujan's medical condition?
You know, I don't know anything that's not already been reported that he had a stroke. It's thankfully he seems to be on the mend. He's going to be out of Washington for at least 4 to 6 weeks. It does. It sounds like he's. I remember when Senator Kirk of Illinois many years ago had a serious stroke and he was, incapacitated for quite some time. It doesn't sound like Senator Lujan's condition is quite as serious, but we don't know a whole lot more other than what
we don't know. And I think actually I talked about this with Jake Sherman yesterday. Senator Lujan is the Senate, a 50-50 Senate. If you lose a Democrat, Mitch McConnell should be running the floor. And if he's not going to be back, now they organized the Senate at the beginning, and I don't think Leader McConnell is going to, stage a coup. But I'm really curious. Do you think the legacy media owes the country some idea of when he's going to be back?
Yeah, I mean, well, look, they've said what they've said. I've known Senator Lujan for quite some time. He was when he was in the House, he headed the House campaign committee. He's one of the youngest senators. I mean, this was really surprising news because he is one of the youngest senators in the body.
As was Mark Kirk. I mean, Mark Kirk was young and healthy. A stroke is a bad thing. My prayers are with him, but we should know.
Yeah, I mean, look, they said, the office said, they expected about a month or two for him to be out of commission. But look, this has, even more notably, it has significant consequences on the Supreme Court strategy for the Biden administration. If they don't have a 50th vote by the time Biden makes his pick and the hearings are going to be held, that's going to, it should affect his calculations and his thinking of whether he needs to get at least a couple of Republicans on board for his election.
Well, one of the things I think is obvious is that they can say to Senator Lujan, resign, we'll appoint a caretaker. When you're ready, that caretaker will resign and you can go back. Isn't that the obvious solution?
Well, look, if it's serious, if that timeline that the office outlined is too optimistic, then maybe the more extreme measures are necessary. But from everything I've heard, there doesn't seem to be a sense of panic. It's just a matter of kind of waiting this out and waiting him to get back into health so he can return to Washington.
Well, I would like legacy media to tell us about this. Now, about Justice Brown Jackson, Judge Brown Jackson on the D.C. Circuit. Washington Free Beacon this morning does a deep dive into something I did not know. She represented Gitmo detainees and did so vigorously. Now, I am a big believer that everyone prosecuted by the United States, whether in the military courts, special courts, or civilian courts, prosecuted state level, you're entitled to counsel. That's a constitutional right. I got no problem with people defending people. But who you choose to represent and how you do it become issues. Do you expect Republicans will drill down on this and thus replay the collapse of Afghanistan every day during her hearings? And if so, do you expect Biden to steer away from her? Because he can't want that, right? He can't want the Afghanistan question to dominate the confirmation hearings.
Yeah, I mean, look, I saw a little bit of the Free Beacon story. I think your point is right that, look, everyone deserves legal counsel, and I don't think, this has anything to do with her politics. I think it has to do with her profession, and that probably isn't going to be held against her in a hearing. Now, I think the politics more broadly is that she is considered, of the three leading names mentioned, she's considered among the progressives seem to like her the most. Look, I think the legal experts are going to pour over her record. I'm not sure if her representation is going to mean a whole lot. One of the other judges, Michelle Childs, has been attacked from the left because she represented corporations. That she her job entailed her to represent, big business. And even though, I don't know what her politics are or her judicial philosophy is, that's just part of her background and her resume. So, I don't know how much to weigh the fact that she represented some of these Gitmo folks. And I don't really know that's going to have a huge impact on.
Josh, you and I can tell everyone all day long that everyone gets the right to counsel, and Americans will not like that she did it. And more importantly, what she did in the course of it will become I just think it's a red flag, sort of like Brett Kavanaugh got a red flag on his decision tree from Mitch McConnell to Trump that they went around anyway. Got to close by asking you, though, about the ratings for the Olympics. They're horrible, Josh. What does that tell you?
That many Americans don't want to watch an Olympics being conducted in a state with such human rights abuses as China. And I saw that Mike Tirico is leaving China early. I don't know why, but he was, thankfully condemning the human rights record of the Chinese. So, this is a, you can't gloss over China's human rights record. And I think, Americans are tuning out because it's just hard to celebrate when you have such atrocities taking place in the country.
Have you watched a minute of it?
Very little. A few minutes over the weekend, but not much at all.
No, I haven't seen a minute of it. Refuse. They're engaged in the systematic destruction of two cultures, Tibet and Uyghur, and the suppression of free Hong Kong, and I won't have anything to do with it, and I think NBC and sponsors made a huge mistake. Josh Kraushaar, National Journal. Follow him at Hotline Josh. Josh, you should watch those Arizona debates I did on Saturday. Oh, has the Republican Party got some fault lines in it. I'll be back, America, tomorrow. Thank you, Adam. Thank you, Dwayne. Thank you, Ben. Ben, I need to talk to you after the show. Don't run away. And America, come back tomorrow because there's always news, and I always give you the breaking news right here on the Hugh Hewitt Show.